they know that you're not someone who just takes anything. They respect that a lot. I think when I say they, I mean like managers and bosses.
Yeah, bosses.
They respect
team members.
Yeah, they respect individuals who just won't just be like, okay, yes, you know, you have to be able to speak up. So that's my answer to the question. I would say wherever you are, whether it's the UK, you're entitled to a break. You're doing a job that's
you're a
very
human being, not a robot.
Yeah, and the job is such a you need mental clarity.
Absolutely.
So, hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are new here, my name is Ore. I'm a pharmacist and I talk all things lifestyle, pharmacy, relocation, and anything to do with like just going forward in your career and your life overall. So if you're new here, welcome. Please make sure you subscribe, like the video, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for joining me. I have an amazing guest here with me. Her name is Faith the Pharmacist. We're going to be talking a little bit about practice in the UK versus Canada. As you guys know, I'm obviously from the UK and now living in Canada, so we're going to share our, I guess, experiences and what it's like, so you definitely want to stay tuned.
So I got lots of questions, but a lot of them were quite repetitive and similar. So we've just compressed them into exactly what we need to answer for you guys today. Some of these questions we've actually answered in our videos on our channels. So please feel free to check my channel out when you want to know anything about like UK practice, anything going on in the UK, and check out Ore's channel because she speaks a lot about relocating to Canada and her process and Canadian pharmacy practice. So we'll leave our handles on the screen and also in the description box. So if you get the chance, quickly click on either of our channels to find out more information. But I'm going to be reading out these questions and I'll let Ore answer first because I feel like most people want to know more about what Canada is doing. But then we're going to also compare with the UK and Canada. What are the best provinces to find jobs and practice as a pharmacist?
This is a good question. I think it's a really great question because I think when people come to Canada, everybody wants to be in Toronto for some reason. I'm guessing it's because it's the most popular one, but there are actually other places in Canada where they pay more, housing is better, and it's easier to find a job because there's not many people. So I wouldn't say that there's a best one, but if I could choose a favorite, I would say Alberta. The reason is because the practice in Alberta mirrors the practice in the UK a lot. Pharmacists can prescribe, they're independent prescribers. I think the same in Nova Scotia. I found out yesterday, pharmacists in Nova Scotia are allowed to do some level of prescribing. Saskatchewan as well have a little bit of that, but I would say Alberta is the one that mirrors the UK the most.
Would you consider moving to Alberta?
If it wasn't for the fact that it's snowing in Alberta right now and it is October, I would consider, because they have like nice big homes for much cheaper than they sell them here.
Really?
Yeah, really big homes. The other thing you have to think about is I also love to travel, and that's just, you know, me and my family, we enjoy traveling. If you're in Alberta or you're in like, you know, I don't know, Saskatchewan or something, it might be harder to get to certain places, or it might take longer. Not harder, but take longer. So for example, here in Ontario, I can drive from here into New York within like an hour.
Yeah, like, that's sweet.
You can drive into New York State within like a few hours.
This is good.
Being here, whereas if you're there, you can drive into other parts of America, but not, because every part of Canada has some form of like connection to the States. But it just depends, right, what your preference is. If you're in somewhere like Saskatchewan, you might have to fly into Alberta and then fly into Toronto before you can actually fly out of Canada. So just things like that to consider, but I would say Alberta for sure. I think they pay well. If you want to go somewhere where they pay even more, maybe looking at like the Northwest Territories if you're into the cold, or like Manitoba, places like that.
Perfect. Let's talk about the UK briefly. I don't think there's any difference in any part of the UK. One thing I know is that in Canada, all the provinces, like she said, have different like rules and regulation. In the UK, you can go from like Cornwall, which is like 7 hours away from London, to London, and it's all the same. You'll literally not feel out of place. Everything, especially if you work for a big company, you walk in and everything is exactly the same. So the only difference is perhaps what your lifestyle is like. Do you like to be in a big city, or do you like to live a country life? Or you might go to some places where you work in a quiet village and it's not too busy and you just enjoy the atmosphere. So it's all based on you and how you feel about the work environment. So the next question is, what is the difference in working conditions? So for example, the right to a quiet lunch and the right to a break time. And I love this question because I have had someone say to me, in this day and age, who is making pharmacists or who is letting pharmacists take a lunch break?
Someone said that?
In the UK, yeah.
Who is letting pharmacists?
Yeah, like, why should a pharmacist have a lunch break?
First of all, I think we probably should have said this at the beginning, and I think it's very important. We were actually discussing this before we started filming. It's very important to be able to stand your ground as a pharmacist, wherever you are, whether it's in Canada, in the UK, or an African nation, wherever it may be, you have to stand your ground. And I think with this question, the answer really is it depends where you are in terms of the company, but also depends on you as an individual, because I can walk into a company where they're like, we don't take lunch breaks here, and I'll be like, I'm not doing that because I can't function well if I'm not, you know,
absolutely
right. You know?
And I think the first thing is also first selling yourself, because once you appear as indispensable or someone that they really want to have, trust me, these companies can flex their rules.
Absolutely.
They can do things to accommodate you as long as they really want you.
Yeah. And knowing that you are someone who is able to, they know that you're not someone who just takes anything. They respect that a lot. I think when I say they, I mean like managers and bosses. Yeah, bosses. They respect
team members.
Yeah, they respect individuals who just won't just be like, okay, yes, you know, you have to be able to speak up. So that's my answer to the question. I would say wherever you are, whether it's the UK, you're entitled to a break. You're doing a job that's
you're a human being, not a robot.
Yeah, and the job is such a, you need mental clarity.
Absolutely.
So a break is important.
Very important. I know they're mandating it in a lot of places in the UK now for people to have lunch breaks. So if you walk into any work environment and they tell you that they don't do lunch breaks, you can open your mouth and say, well, I need a lunch break, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a lunch break and your brain is misfiring in the middle of checking and doing stuff, it's all going to come back to haunt you. So just look after yourself.
Yes.
All right, so the next question is, what country is it more difficult to relocate to from Europe and other parts of the world? So I think we have touched on that initially. So I don't think it's too difficult either way. I just think it's different things. So it's more expensive to relocate to the UK if you're from any other country that's not in the European region. It's cheaper for Europeans. But to move to Canada, I think it's slightly cheaper if you're coming from the UK.
Yeah, it depends really.
It depends on where you're coming from.
I can imagine people who might be moving with a family, you know, the other things you have to consider financially. So it depends where you're coming from and where you're going to. But generally, you need, I would say, at least £10,000.
Do you know what? Before you consider relocating, I would recommend just sitting down for a good few months and actually putting together everything that you would need and actually determining if it works for you and your situation.
And doing your research. And videos like this are great for your research as well.
Yep. Is it possible to apply, write your qualification exam, write your evaluation exam and get your license in one province, then use it to practice in another? I think that's a simple one. Yeah,
so I'll just very quickly, Faith mentioned in the UK you can go anywhere and your license is still valid. I am an Ontario pharmacist, so I cannot go to Alberta and just walk into a pharmacy and practice. I need to get an Alberta license, and to get that I have to write another exam, which is a law exam. So no, the answer is no. Basically you have to do a law exam in each province in order for you to practice. Unless they're very stressed, sometimes they end up giving licenses. They've been doing that sometimes, but usually no.
Good. So the next one, we're just going to try and get through it quickly because we haven't got much time. The next one says, if I move using permanent residency, what pharmacy related jobs can I apply to pending getting the license, because that can take quite a while? That's
a very good question, and actually in one of my videos I also recommend doing this. If you can get a pharmacy assistant job, they're always looking for pharmacy assistant individuals who can work as a pharmacy assistant. It will help you a lot with your exam as well, because you get to see the drugs, you get to see the interaction, you get to see insurance, you get an insight into Canadian healthcare, and that will take you further.
I think that really helps, because that would just be like a simulation of a, say, pre-reg, for example,
absolutely, so I would say if you can, like Faith mentioned, the money might not be great, or maybe, you know, even if you want to go for like a role that's just volunteering, it's still good experience, even if it's for
just to be in the pharmacy, just to get your license. Okay, quickly, is it as stressful to work in Canada? We've sort of answered this as well. I think it just depends on
who you work for, where
the work
you are.
environment, who you work for, and how you manage to negotiate like your benefits and work experience, basically.
Yes.
So you just learn to speak up for yourself, and I think both of us touch on these quite a bit on our channels. So if you just go and check out videos, you will come across lots of videos telling you about how to navigate working in these countries and actually getting a fulfilling career out of them. Yeah. So some questions from YouTube. Right, so what is the process of qualifying in both countries side by side? We have touched on this, and they are on our channels as well. So for the UK, it's either OSPAP, or if you're from Europe, you just apply to get a license as long as you satisfy the GPHC requirements, which are on the GPHC website. And for Canada, you have to write the qualifying exam.
Yeah, if you go to pebc.ca, again, all the information will be in the description box. So check that out, and that gives you all kind of the details.
Again, what is the cost of the qualification process? So in total, if you're one singular person coming to the UK and you want to do the qualification process, it's 2 years, 1 year of which you will be doing a pre-reg and you'll be getting paid for that. So I don't think that's as stressful as the first year. So the first year is the most cost-intensive one, which is where you have to sort out your accommodation, your visa, and your OSPAP, if you have to do OSPAP. And if you don't have to do OSPAP, then it's a lot cheaper for you. But that first year might be costing you somewhere around 30 grand, £30,000. It is a lot, but if you really want to, it's an investment towards your future.
Yeah.
And the cost of the qualification process in Canada, like she said, let's say about £1,000 in total, just for everything.
10,000.
So 10
minimum.
Not 10. No, no 10. Don't go.
I would say minimum.
Don't quote me outside, please. 10,000.
Yeah.
All right. Staffing levels. I think I like this question. What is staffing levels like in the UK? I know we complain a lot. And what is it like in Canada? I'll let you go first, actually.
Okay, I think it just depends where you work. I've worked in places where they've only given me one person. I've worked in places where I've been the only person, which I will never work in such places again. But I've also been in places where they've given me, 5 or more staff for a shift. So that's, it just depends where you work.
Cool. In the UK, it's the same. So I think you just need to find the right environment. It's getting quite bad actually, where lots of people are leaving pharmacy, so there are lots of roles that are being difficult to fill. So it's just now becoming more obvious that there's really poor staffing levels across the board in the UK. But again, if you put your foot down, you would ensure that you don't end up with skeleton staffing in a situation where you have to do a lot of work. And please, this is something that I always advise. If you walk in and you don't have enough staff, make sure you speak up, because the minute you accept that, you would basically be saying that people should be able to work under these conditions, and that should be fine. We all need to have like the same standards, otherwise we won't get fair working conditions. Right, so the next question is, what is the general public perception of pharmacists in Canada?
That's such a good question.
I love that question.
That is such a good question. I think I would just say, for me, I've seen both sides, and I think the general public's perception is almost exactly the same. I would say that we have a responsibility as pharmacists to educate the public on what we do and how important we are. So I think one thing I'm seeing is that pharmacists are the same. We're quiet, we're timid, we're shy, we don't want to speak up, we don't want to stand up for ourselves, and that's not really helping in terms of the public. So I would say they're quite similar, so I think we have a lot of work to do just worldwide as pharmacists.
Yeah, it took me a while to actually boldly be able to say that I'm a pharmacist and I love my job.
Yes.
It took me a while because I used to be quite shy in the beginning of my practice, and I would sit down with my colleagues and everyone would just be like, oh, this job is crap. Patients will not really respect us. Other healthcare professionals will not respect us. But it got to a point where I was like, actually, I enjoy what I'm doing and I see the impact and I see the value of being in this position. And I feel like if I was not here, and if other beautiful and amazing pharmacists were not in their positions, there will be a problem in the whole healthcare system. And we need to actually recognize our value and what we bring to the table and actually start sounding our own trumpets. Because if we don't, nobody will.
They won't respect us, and
no one will.
We do. So I think everything she said is.
So I think we just need to be more confident, honestly, and just speak up more. And when they're talking to you, have your shoulders up. Even if you're chatting nonsense, just know that you qualified, you earned that license. If you have to go back and say, do you know what, I just double checked and I just need to correct what I said, but just be brave and be
bold.
confident.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So the next thing is, are there drug shortages in both countries, and how is this managed?
Yeah, I would say they are. I mean, we were just speaking about Ozempic just this past weekend, and it's happening in both places. So I would say that they're both, you know, both countries are having shortages, and I guess it's being managed kind of nationally by whoever the national drug regulators are, and yeah.
So do patients struggle then, and do pharmacists get the backlash when there's any shortage?
Sometimes, yeah.
It happens a lot in the UK, to be honest, when there's a drug shortage. For example, atorvastatin has been out of stock recently for a while, and it's been crazy, and things like bumetanide have been out of stock.
Wow. Oh my God,
and these are things that lots of people are on, heart failure, lots of like people being on atorvastatin for prevention, and you know, obviously it's terrifying for patients, and pharmacists do get a lot of bashing because we're like at the forefront of a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I do think there's shortages and pharmacists get the backlash of it, but I think generally it gets managed, like, you know, by the manufacturers, and things obviously gets put into place as soon as they can.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the same across board.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Similar.
So
yeah.
Don't go to Canada thinking you would escape drug shortages. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's everywhere. Yeah. Okay. So the question that everyone wants to know.
Drum roll.
What are the salary comparisons? Oh my God. Right. So I know this is not one answer because there's like different sectors of pharmacy that you can work in. There's different jobs you can do. There's being a newly qualified versus being like, you know, experienced.
Yes.
There's coming to the table with lots of experiences from different places. So what I'd say is we should give a range.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then compare that vis-a-vis like living condition, like how expensive is the lifestyle. Because again, if you're earning a lot and the lifestyle doesn't even help you retain a good amount and you're just spending and spending on your day-to-day, then it still doesn't make sense, right?
Absolutely.
So I'll let you go first.
Okay. I would say that on average, from a starting salary, like if you're new, someone who's experienced, pharmacists earn starting from about 85 to 90,000 Canadian dollars to 100,000 plus. Most pharmacists on average are on about 100,000.
Let me convert it.
100,000 Canadian dollars on average. I think that might be about 70,000 pounds.
So 80,000, yeah?
Yeah. So let's say 90,000 Canadian dollars.
90,000 to start.
Would be the starting on average for most people.
So that's about 54,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Which I would say is about the same that they're starting with now.
Interesting.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. Because when I started, it was 25.
It's crazy. So the average starting salary in the UK is about 40 to 45,000, but a lot of places are offering a lot more than that now because roles are becoming harder to fill because there's lots more roles opening for pharmacists in the UK. So that's leading to having vacancies, and the pharmacists earning about 100,000. Those are chief pharmacists and pharmacists who are working maybe industry and have negotiated their way up. So again, it has to do with like you finding your way through the system and being able to actually big yourself up, get your like qualifications up, like get things under your belt that you can use to negotiate your salary. Comparing that to the lifestyle, I would say pharmacists are probably slightly above average earners in the UK. They're not middle class, they're like slightly above middle class. That's where I would class pharmacists, but it's not great, it's not like a whole lot. You're just comfortable and have probably a little bit more. Yeah,
I would say from my experience, again, I've like seen both sides, and I think pharmacists here can earn a lot more and your money goes way further. So like I said, on average, a pharmacist who's been working for a while will probably be in the over 100,000 K that they're earning every year. Again, pharmacists in Canada get paid every 2 weeks, so it always feels nice to get paid every single 2 weeks. Also, for some reason, I find that, you know, I've been able to see my money a lot more when I've been here than in the UK. Your money goes further, like I said. You know, houses here are, you know, slightly bigger than houses in the UK. Food is expensive in Canada, so that's another thing.
Transportation.
So do
you think pharmacists are pretty much well off in Canada?
Yeah, I think
Like
pharmacists...
people would look at you and be like, oh, you're wealthy.
Yeah, I think they would. I think they would.
Oh, wow.
But again, it depends. It depends where you are, which province you are, and who you work for, how you're able to negotiate your way up. It's not foreign to see a pharmacist earning, you know.
So you can definitely live a more comfortable lifestyle here than in the UK compared to...
It depends. Again, if you're a pharmacist who's living somewhere like, I don't know, Newcastle, Manchester, like...
That's a lot expensive.
Yeah, like
That's
I feel like...
expensive.
Really? What do you mean?
Manchester's expensive.
Okay, maybe not Manchester then.
Manchester's
maybe
expensive, that's like London.
I don't know, like Durham or something. Oh, Durham's quite expensive. Either way, I just think if you're away from like the central location, you know, it might be cheaper to live basically. You know, you might not have to spend as much money. Houses might be cheaper. So yeah.
But I personally think from what I've observed, your money does go a lot further in Canada, and I think there's a lot more support as well from like just... I don't know, it just feels a lot easier in Canada than in the UK. Yeah. But then you're not suffering in the UK either. So I guess it's just looking at what works for you particularly. And think about like family, friends, having a community. What would be better for you? If you come here and you're in isolation, any millions of Canadian dollars, you might be miserable if you're someone who being around community and family is very important.
It's important for everyone. It takes a while to settle.
Just you know, think about what's important for you and go for it.
Okay.
So this was lovely.
Yeah, it's so lovely to do this. I hope you guys found it helpful.
Yes.
Make sure you're subscribed to both channels. Make sure you're following on Instagram for both of us. And if you have more questions, you can ask.
Feel free to throw them at us. We might not be able to do a sit down one like this, but we can always do like a virtual interview style video. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, leave us comments down in the comment section below, and don't forget to check out both our channels and subscribe. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you. Bye.